They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from someone you love. But that's not true. It cuts deepest when it comes from someone you protected. Someone you would have died for. Someone who sat across from you every morning eating cereal with the same spoon you used as a child. Smiling, laughing, while plotting to become you. That someone was my sister. Her name is Alana. And before she destroyed my life, piece by piece she was my best friend. We were just two girls growing up in a small town in Connecticut. 2 years apart. He had the charm, the spark, the wild streak. I had the grades, the goals, the plan. We were opposites in every way, but somehow we fit. Or maybe I just convinced myself we did. People always told me how lucky I was to have a sister like her. Beautiful. Outgoing. Fiercely loyal, or so I thought. She'd pull me into adventures when I wanted to stay inside. She'd steal my clothes but always say I looked better in them. He made me feel seen. Like I wasn't just the responsible one, but the one who mattered. So when things started to fall apart, I never looked at her. I looked everywhere else. It started the summer I landed a dream internship in New York City. A top-tier branding agency with connections that could change my life. I remember the night I got the email. I screamed so loud I scared the neighbors. Alana came running, and when I told her, she jumped on the bed with me and squealed like it was her dream too. He helped me shop for office clothes. Gave me pep talks. Even bought me a tiny cactus for my desk, said it was something green to remind you of home. When I left for the city, I believed I was stepping into my future. But what I was actually walking into was a setup. My second week in, files from a confidential client project were mysteriously leaked to a rival firm. I was pulled into HR. Accused. Fired. No one believed me. I searched for answers, retraced every move, but came up empty. Shame chased me back home like a shadow. Alana greeted me with open arms and warm cocoa. She stroked my hair and whispered, "You're too good for them anyway." I cried in her lap like a child. I didn't know she was the one who tipped them off. Not then. I didn't find out until much later. Then came Evan. He was kind. Steady. The kind of man who listened more than he spoke. We met at a networking mixer. Our connection was instant. So natural it felt like fate had finally handed me something I didn't have to work for. On our third date I told Alana about him. Her eyes lit up. "Invite him over," she said. "Let me meet this guy who's got you glowing." I did. Why wouldn't I? He was my sister. Of course she was warm. Of course she made him laugh. Of course she asked him deep questions and smiled that perfect Alana smile that made people feel like they were the only one in the room. I didn't think anything of it. Not until things between Evan and me started to shift. Slowly. Subtly. Like threads coming undone. He became distant. Distracted. I told myself it was work stress. That we all go through rough patches. But then I saw the text. Just one. Short. 40. Unmistakably intimate. I didn't recognize the number, so I looked it up. And my blood ran cold. It was her. Lana. The same sister who once pinky swore to never let a man come between us. The same sister who cried when I got my first period just because she thought I was growing up too fast and leaving her behind. That sister was sleeping with my boyfriend. And that was only the beginning. I stared at the screen, rereading the message over and over until the words blurred. My mouth went dry. My hands shook. It was just 8 words, but those 8 words cracked something open in me that would never fully heal. Last night was amazing. I can still feel you. The number wasn't saved. But it didn't have to be. I knew exactly who it belonged to. I knew because the number was one I'd dialed 1,000 times when I needed someone. When I needed her. It was Alana. I wish I could say I screamed. Or threw the phone. Or stormed over to confront them. But I didn't. I just sat there frozen. A shell of a person. Like if I stayed still enough I could pretend it wasn't happening. That I had misread it. That it was all a sick coincidence. But deep down I knew. Everything started making sense. Evan's sudden mood swings. His late nights. His coldness when I tried to touch him. The way Alana always had a reason to swing by when she knew he'd be around. The way he laughed a little too hard at her jokes. And the way she stopped asking about him altogether. Like if she ignored the subject it would erase the guilt. They weren't even hiding it well. They didn't need to. Because I trusted them both. I trusted her more than anyone. That betrayal, it didn't feel like a cut. It felt like slow poisoning. Like I'd been drinking from the same cup every day, only to find out it had been killing me all along. For 2 days I said nothing. I barely ate. I barely slept. I rehearsed what I'd say. Played it out in my mind 100 different ways. But nothing could prepare me for the truth that came when I finally confronted her. I invited her over under the pretense of needing to talk. She showed up smiling, carrying a bag of takeout like it was any other night. Like she hadn't been sneaking around with the man I loved. I sat across from her at the kitchen table. I could barely look her in the eye. "I saw the text," I said. Her expression didn't even flicker. "What text?" I took a breath. I had screenshotted it. I slid my phone across the table. She picked it up, glanced at it, and leaned back in her chair. Still no panic. No apology. Just calm. "Okay," she said. "That was it." "Okay." I whispered. I didn't plan it. It just happened. My heart cracked in half. "It just happened? You were always the one with the perfect everything," she said, looking me dead in the eye. "Perfect grades, perfect future, perfect boyfriend. I was just the sidekick." I got tired of it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think I had it perfect?" I snapped. "I worked my ass off for everything. You were the one everyone adored. You were the one who could walk into a room and have people wrapped around your finger in 5 seconds. "Exactly," she said coldly. "And yet they still saw you as the smart one. The wife material. Evan was already halfway gone, you just didn't want to see it." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "How long?" I asked. He shrugged. "Couple of months." That casual tone, it enraged me more than anything else. "You slept with my boyfriend for months and never thought to, what? Feel guilt? Remorse?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh please. Like you never made mistakes." I stood up, tears blurring my vision. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. "I want you out of my life," I said. "Forever." She didn't flinch. She just stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked out like she hadn't just destroyed our sisterhood with a few careless words. I called Evan next. He didn't deny it either. He mumbled something about feeling lost, and not knowing what he wanted, and how it was over anyway. I hung up before he finished. I curled up on my bed and cried until the morning light poured through the blinds. Then I got up, washed my face, and told myself something I wasn't sure I believed yet. They don't get to break me. They don't get to win. They wanted to take my life. Fine. I'd let them watch me build a new one. Better. Stronger. Untouchable. And I'd make sure they'd feel the sting of everything they tried to steal, when they saw who I became without them. The thing about betrayal is, it forces you to see the world through new eyes. Suddenly, everything you thought was safe becomes suspicious. Every moment that once felt sacred turns into a landmine of memories. I couldn't even sit on the couch without seeing the two of them there, laughing, drinking wine, pretending nothing was happening behind my back. So I left. I packed a suitcase with the basics, booked a small cabin 2 towns over, and turned off my phone. I needed silence. I needed space from their noise, their lies, their shadows in my home. The cabin was nothing fancy. Just a one-room space with creaky floors and a fire that refused to start unless you begged it. But it became my sanctuary. I spent days just breathing, cooking slowly, sleeping without dreams, walking aimlessly through pine trees and letting the crisp air remind me that life still existed outside the wreckage. The pain didn't go away, but it changed shape. It became fuel. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. I poured every thought onto paper, every memory, every flash of anger, every wound that hadn't stopped bleeding. And in those pages, I began to find something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. They had taken so much from me. My trust. My home. My sense of direction. But they hadn't taken me. They hadn't taken my resilience. And slowly I started remembering who I was before Evan. Before Alana. Before I became someone defined by their presence. I was ambitious. Driven. Compassionate. I had plans that reached beyond small towns and shared apartments. I used to dream of starting my own design studio, turning my passion for interiors into something beautiful and lasting. So I started sketching again. At first it was just therapy, something to keep my hands busy when my mind wanted to wander back to the hurt. But then ideas started flowing. Real ones. Strong ones. I built a website. Reached out to contacts I hadn't spoken to in years. And within a few weeks I landed my first solo client. It wasn't big, a nursery redesign for a young couple. But it meant everything to me. It meant that I could stand on my own again. That I didn't need Evan's praise or Alana's approval to define my worth. The more I worked, the more pieces of myself came back. I started waking up excited again. Smiling again. Believing, even if just a little, that maybe this heartbreak had cleared the path for something bigger. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. And one night, just as I was finishing a mock-up for a new client, I got a text from an unknown number. Thought of you today. Hope you're okay. Evan. I stared at it for a long time, heart steady this time. Not racing. Not breaking. Just tired. He was trying to slip back in the way men like him always do. With vague apologies and soft check-ins and just enough kindness to confuse the silence. But I wasn't the same girl he left behind. I didn't reply. I wouldn't give him that piece of me again. 2 days later it was Alana. She emailed me. A long, drawn-out message filled with half-hearted excuses and what she called her side of the story. She said Evan wasn't who she thought he was. That he'd started pulling away from her too. That maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe. She ended the message with something that almost made me laugh. I miss my sister. My sister? She killed the version of me that believed in sisters. But I didn't reply to her either. Not because I wasn't angry. But because I didn't need revenge. Not the way they would expect. My revenge would be quiet. Powerful. I would rebuild everything they tried to tear down, and I would do it without them. Because success isn't just about rising. It's about rising where they can see you. Knowing they lost someone irreplaceable. And it was their choice. It took months before our paths crossed again. By then my studio had grown from 1 client to 10. I had a small team. A rented office space. Features in 2 online magazines. I'd become someone new. Someone they wouldn't recognize. And maybe that was the point. The day it happened, I was scheduled to meet a new investor. A boutique hotel manager who was looking for a full redesign of his chain's interiors. I walked into the restaurant early, confident in my heels, presentation folder in hand, hair pinned the way I used to think made me look too serious. Now it made me look powerful. I didn't see them at first. But they saw me. I heard my name before I saw the face that said it. Emily. My stomach dipped, but I didn't flinch. I turned around slowly and there they were. Evan and Alana. Together. Sitting at a table behind me, hands awkwardly pulled apart like they were unsure if they were still allowed to touch in public. Alana looked thinner. Nervous. Her makeup was heavier than I remembered. Evan looked older. Not in a mature way but in a weathered way. Like guilt had added years to his face. I forced a smile. Wow. Look who's out in the daylight. Alana blinked. I didn't know you'd be here. Of course you didn't, I said calmly. You haven't known anything about my life for a long time. Evan stood up halfway. Can we talk? Please. I nodded toward the investor who had just walked in behind me. I have a meeting. Alana reached for my arm. Emily, I miss you. I made a mistake. I looked at her hand, then at her. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You don't get to rewrite it just because it didn't work out the way you hoped. Evan stepped in. I never meant to hurt you. I tilted my head. You meant to leave me without explanation. You meant to lie to me for months. You meant to build a relationship with my sister behind my back. So maybe, hurting me wasn't an accident. Maybe it was just easy. I walked past them without another glance. That meeting went exceptionally well. I signed a 6-month contract that day and I walked out knowing my past no longer had the power to shake me. But they weren't done yet. A week later, Alana showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me, confused. She says she's your sister? I sighed. Tell her I'm in a meeting. She said she'll wait. Of course she would. I let her sit for 2 hours. When I finally stepped out, she rushed toward me like we were still 8 and 11, like I hadn't spent months rebuilding myself from the damage she left. I just want a chance to explain, she said. I folded my arms. Explain what? That I wasn't trying to hurt you. I didn't plan to fall in love with him. But you did. And when you realized it might cost you your sister, you did it anyway. That's the part that matters, Alana. Her eyes filled with tears. She always cried when she didn't get her way. I lost him too, you know. He's not the man I thought he was. That's unfortunate, I said coolly. But it's not my problem anymore. She reached out again, desperate, needy. But I stepped back. I forgave you, I said softly. But I didn't forget. And I don't need you in my life to feel whole again. She looked stunned. Like she never expected me to draw a line. But the truth is, some people only love you when you're beneath them. And the moment you rise, they mistake your strength for cruelty. But it wasn't cruelty that made me walk away. It was peace. And I wasn't willing to lose that again. Not even for the people who shared my blood. The day I saw Alana for who she truly was, everything clicked into place. It wasn't the tears. It wasn't the apologies. It was the realization that she missed the version of me that didn't know how to say no. The girl who used to clean up her messes, make excuses for her behavior, shrink so she could shine. But that girl was gone. And in her place stood a woman who no longer needed anyone's approval to feel worthy. The gossip started floating a few weeks after that visit. People from our hometown, mutual friends, former classmates, started reaching out. I got messages like, "Is it true Alana and Evan broke up? Did you hear what happened at their engagement party? Word is, he left her for someone else." At first I didn't believe it. Evan was too calculated to humiliate himself like that. But the curiosity got the best of me. One night I clicked on her profile, something I hadn't done in months. There was a cryptic caption on a selfie, her eyes puffy and her smile forced. "Healing isn't linear." Another post, just her and a glass of wine. "Sometimes the people who say they love you the most destroy you the worst." She was crumbling. The very life she stole from me was now unraveling in her hands. And yet I didn't feel satisfaction. Not in the way I expected. Because by now I was so far removed from that chapter of my life, it felt like watching someone else's tragedy unfold. I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply free. That's when the letter arrived. A handwritten envelope, no return address. Inside was a note. Not in Alana's handwriting. Not Evan's. It was from Evan's mother. I hadn't seen her since the night she called me the safe choice for her son. The note was short. "Emily, I owe you an apology. I should have seen the kind of man my son truly was. I pushed him to choose someone that mirrored the image we wanted, not the integrity we needed. I'm sorry. You deserved better. I hope you found it." For a moment I sat still, staring at her words. Because for the first time, someone from that entire nightmare acknowledged what I'd always known. I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the villain. I was just the easiest one to blame. A week later, I was invited to speak on a panel for women in design. It was a huge event. My photo on the flyer. My bio in the program. Hundreds of eyes and ears tuned in to hear my story, not of heartbreak but of rebirth. As I stood on that stage looking out at the crowd, I thought about how far I'd come. Not just from Evan. Not just from Alana. But from myself. From the quiet girl who never wanted to take up too much space, to the woman who now commanded an entire room. I spoke about failure. I spoke about betrayal. And I spoke about the beauty of rebuilding. Afterward, as I stood near the back doors shaking hands, someone approached quietly. It was a girl. Young. Nervous. Tears in her eyes. "You just told my story," she said. I smiled softly. "Then I hope you know you're allowed to rewrite the ending." Because in the end, that's what I did. I stopped waiting for apologies. I stopped begging to be seen. I became the woman I needed when the world tried to erase me. And that woman, he's unstoppable. Some people say revenge is about getting even. But mine was quieter. Cleaner. It wasn't about hurting them back. It was about living so well they'd have no choice but to watch. Months passed. I signed 2 more high-profile clients. Got featured in a national design magazine. My name started carrying weight in circles I once only dreamed of joining. I moved into a sunlit loft with high ceilings and an actual view, not just of the skyline but of everything I'd earned without shortcuts, without betrayal, without stealing someone else's spotlight. One afternoon while organizing samples at the office, my phone buzzed. It was a message request. From Alana. I stared at it for a while before opening it. Read. I saw your interview on the Morning Rise segment. You were incredible. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry again. I hope you're happy. Truly. I didn't reply. Not because I was bitter. But because I didn't need to anymore. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't about letting someone back in. It was about setting yourself free. And I was finally, undeniably free. A week later I ran into Evan. Total accident. I was leaving a client meeting and he was walking in with someone new. He froze when he saw me. His expression said it all: regret, shame, awe. Emily, he said, like my name still hurt to say. Hi, I replied, calm as the sky. You look amazing. I am. He paused. I just wanted to say. It's okay, I cut in gently. You don't owe me anything. He blinked. But I do. I tilted my head. Then make sure you never do to someone else what you did to me. That's how you make it right. And then I walked away. Not with sadness. Not with pain. But with peace. Because the most powerful kind of revenge isn't screaming or breaking down or begging someone to see your worth. It's waking up one morning, brushing your hair back and realizing you've built an entirely new life without them. It's knowing they get to watch from the sidelines while you live a story they were never brave enough to be a part of. It's smiling, not because they're gone but because you're still standing. And stronger than ever. If you've ever felt like someone tried to take your life piece by piece, let this be your reminder. They might have broken parts of you, but they never touched the fire inside you. Rebuild. Rise. And when they look back, let them see the version of you they were never worthy of. Thanks for watching. If this story spoke to you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter. Until next time.